everybody else's comments and say that good to see you. You are incredible. Thank you for doing what you're doing. It's not very many times that as a committee we look at someone who's taken a position and are just thankful that they've done so. Your knowledge and credibility is unmatched, and I am greatly appreciative that you bring your skills to what is an incredibly important position. Luckily, you have it in an exciting time, so your skills are definitely needed. As you know, the Lima tank plant has been of particular interest to me. It is not in my congressional district, but it is our single tank plant. It is government owned and contractor operated. It has unique and complex manufacturing skills and a unique workforce. Over the last 10 years, as you know, there's been decisions that have made that almost resulted in the plant closing, but you actually worked with us and helped to ensure that that plant remained open. So thank you in your understanding of the necessity of that as being a critical asset for us in our supply chain and manufacturing. As you know, Poland has just signed an agreement to acquire 250 Abrams tanks. Unfortunately, the time period for getting those tanks to them is like the end of 2024 or early 2025 to start. The tank plant is currently producing about 15 tanks a month. It could produce more. Considering what's happening with Ukraine and Russia, obviously it is much more important that we get those tanks to them, as we've seen Russia's operations in Ukraine, and understand that this level of equipment is incredibly important. And also, as you know, Poland gave some tanks to Ukraine, and we need to backfill those. I know you might have some ideas as to what can we do to expedite that. As we look at all our supply chains as a result of the Ukraine operation, we're going to have to enhance their ability to produce. I look forward also that we're going to be able to actually be at the tank plant together coming up soon. What are your thoughts as to how we can fill those orders quicker, get them in the hands of the Poles, and also ensure our own production?
Yes, sir. Thank you for those kind words, and you're raising this very important issue. As you mentioned, Lima, that plant is a national treasure, one of a kind, critical to everything the Army does. And it was also great to see Poland, that order finally come through. I know it took a while. There were reasons for that. I could tell you offline, but we got there. And it's very important. In terms of acceleration, there are options. It could involve, for example, prioritizing deliveries to them a little bit ahead of the U.S. Army, for example, or other allies. Those are dials we can turn. The Army is normally not the one to decide that. That would normally be OSD, but that is one option, sir. Another thing we're doing to try to enhance cooperation with Poland is, in the meantime, establishing a training activity with them to allow for at least initial familiarization, training with U.S. soldiers on Abrams tanks in Poland. And those efforts are underway to start that. So that is a mitigation to try to get them a head start on all the people side of operating an Abrams tank and doing the logistics. Beyond that, sir, transferring additional equipment to them, we are looking at options, including perhaps using the new Lend-Lease Act authority to think creatively about how we could provide them with tanks in the interim. Those are very nascent conversations, though, so I would have to come back to you with more detail in the classified space, sir, to give you the whole story. In terms of the industrial base itself, it's great to see the tank at 15 plants a month. I remember when we were fighting to keep it at 1 tank a month. So, but I know it can do more, and I know the workforce can do more. So I think if the Army continues to invest, and we get great support from Congress last year, thank you for that, that'll help the industrial base broadly. Simply put, the more tanks going through there, the healthier the industrial base that feeds it.
So I also noticed that on your unfunded mandates, it's listed for the Army, modernization and procurement of the Abrams tank. Can you speak to that? And is there?
Yes, sir.
How does that play into both production and funding?
Yes, sir. So one reason it was so high on the list, it was one of our more difficult choices in terms of where to adjust funding to maintain funding for other modernization priorities. We wanted to ensure it was high on the list, and the Chief of Staff luckily concurred with that view. So I think that prioritization reflects the Army's view of how important that is. And if we can get help there, the Army would be glad to accept it. And we are ready to execute and to crank that production line up even more than it already is now.
Again, thank you for your service.